Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. We continue with the briefing of Oleksiy Dmytrenko, Director of the Odesa Regional Economic Department. We will discuss support for internally displaced persons. Oleksiy, the floor is yours. Good afternoon for the floor. When it comes to the economic potential of the Odesa region, we should start with the industry. The full-scale invasion was a significant blow to the stable functioning of the industrial enterprises of the region due to the loss of supply chains of goods and their components for manufacturing. However, in 2 months after the start of the full-scale invasion, some industrial recovery. In the first half of 2022, the industry of the region worked at 55–60% of the pro indicators. Then in the first half of 2023, we have more than 80%. That was before the full-scale invasion, and these numbers are decreasing. We can see increased production of yogurt, butter, cheese, dairy products, bread, mixtures of fruit and vegetable juices, oils, wine, some sausages and pasta products, canned vegetables and fruit. The volume of production of beef, pork, apple juice, flour, mixture and dough, sweet biscuits decreased. I'd like to say that the modern state economic doctrine regarding the prospects of the development of industry in the Odesa region put the development of the processing industry in the first place. We need to create products with added value, and also the development of vegetable growing and horticulture for the creation and efficient function of fruit and vegetable processing enterprises is also a priority. 12 priority objects for the restoration of irrigation in this region have already been approved, the cost of which before the war was 750 million hryvnias. I would also like to say that without proper business function, it will be difficult to win in war. And our administration constantly supports business. For example, we issue passes for the curfew, for the stable operation of enterprises, and we also support with the mobilization issues for the reserve for the conscripts. Thus, we have identified 100 enterprises which are critical for the economy of our region. More than 100 requests have been sent to general staff, and more than 3,000 persons have been already reserved. 100 applications, 3,000 people. For what period? The period since February 2023, following the new procedure for reservation. As for the construction, despite the full occasion, this industry is stable. In 2022 alone, more than 700,000 square meters of housing was put into operation. This is the first place among the regions in our country, and in 2023, we expect the commissioning of up to 500,000 square meters, and we will be among 5 leaders in our country. Trade. Despite the full-scale invasion, all trade enterprises reported about stable operation, including markets, malls, etc. Taking this opportunity, I would like to remind the businessmen about order number 6, amended by Order 14, defining the limits for their operation for entertainment establishment. It is forbidden for people to stay in such facilities from 11 p.m. And there are also limitations, for example, like loud music, spotlight, and that could violate the regime of light masking. As for the small and medium business, we can see an absolute increase in legal entities and individual entrepreneurs. More than 715 legal entities and more than 2,000 individual entrepreneurs have been registered as of July 1. In general, we have 900,500 legal entities covering such activities as wholesale and retail trade, more than 42%, information telecommunication, more than 10%, real estate transactions, almost 6%, professional, scientific, and technical activities, more than 5%, transport, 5%, etc. For January-June 2023, taxes amounted to more than 8.7 million hryvnias, which is plus 49% compared to the corresponding period of the previous year, and which is 30% of the total amount of tax revenues. This is our economic front. As for agriculture, the harvest continues in the region. As of 15 August, more than 3 million tons of grains and legumes have been processed. 36.3 centners per hectare is the medium, the average yield. The leaders are Belgorod-Dnestrovsky and Podilsky districts with more than 40 centners per hectare. Since the beginning of 2023 till June this year, the loans amounted to more than 3.2 billion hryvnias in the framework of the state program 579 affordable loans. 685 entrepreneurs became participants of these programs in the year. As for the state support, 579 affordable loans program is stable. More than 4,000 businessmen received credits, loans to the amount of more than 15 billion hryvnias. According to the order of the head of the Odesa regional administration, as of the 7th of August, we continued the program for the development of competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises, which is the great tool to support businessmen in Odesa region. And I would like to provide more information about this program. Our program envisages some mechanisms. The most important is to compensate the interest rates for loans. If we have small and medium-sized enterprises gets loans for the development, modernization, or development of new types of goods and services, or for implementing energy efficiency of the production process, then we can compensate up to 10% of the interest rate from the local budget. If this entrepreneur is a participant to 579 affordable loans and our regional program, it is possible to get loan without interest. We also have the mechanism for the value-added products to be represented at the international markets. If our entrepreneurs participate in international trade fairs, we can compensate some of the costs. We also have the mechanism to compensate the judicial expert examination as for the losses and the results of the war. So if there are the losses related to the armed aggression against Ukraine and entrepreneurs want to get compensation, the independent expertise is envisaged and we can compensate from the local budget. We also support the servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine as a part of the Odesa program, and we can also compensate some of loans. As for pricing policy in the Odesa region, the situation is worse As of June 2023, the consumer price index is 105.5%. Also, the overall share of Ukraine is 404.6%. We can see the increase in prices for vegetables in 1.5 times, meat and meat products plus 8%, fruits plus almost 8%, fish and fish products plus 6%, cheese, butter, and milk plus 4. Average, the cost of bread and bread products increased by 0.2%. At the same time, the price of eggs and flour all decreased by 35 and 1% respectively. And we can also speak about the growth of the big population. And in 2022, it was increased by 5.1. In January-June 2023, by almost 5%. The transport complex is a very important branch of the economy of Odesa region. In January-July 2023, 34.4 million tons of cargo were processed in the ports of Odesa region, which is 135% compared to 2021. But there are still challenges that are related to the blocked ports of the Black Sea, and it affects our Danian ports. And such ports as Ismail increased their transshipment by 3.2 times. Reni port increased almost 2 times its production. Uzdunaisk 3 times. This Dniester port produced 11 million tons of cargo. 18 million tons of cargo. It's by the Danube port. So what is the period in 2023? After the aggressor country left the Green Deal, it attacks the port infrastructure. We have 100,000 tons of destroyed products and around 30 objects of port infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed. I'd like to remind about order of the military law that forbids the movement of heavy traffic on highways A15, M05, M14. The order prohibits the movement of more than 24 tons in the period from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And our regional administration recommends to address military administration to get passes for transportation of this cargo during the curfew. This will allow us to preserve roads. Who controls the fulfillment of this order? Because I saw at night the trucks in Odesa region. It is controlled by Transpespeka, patrol police, the infrastructure, the road renovation program. And according to results of our monitoring, after 10 p.m., the trucks do not go in following the roads. It is allowed to transport the military goods, humanitarian goods, perishable goods, and also humans, poultry, and animals. So there are exceptions from the general rules. Perhaps you saw the trucks. I saw a lot of exceptions. Okay, and then you can continue. Thank you. As for social and labor relations, then we have the depth of wages. And because of the full-scale invasion, is more than 74 million hryvnias before 4,000 of workers. The total number of data enterprises is 31 economic entities, and there are 18,000 of them. So the leader is Odesa region, more than 49% of the total amount of arrears. And it is clear because most enterprises are in Odesa district. The average salary in our region is more than 12,000 hryvnias, and it increased by 2% compared to the previous year. We have 418,000 employed people, officially employed people. Thank you. That's it, and I'm ready to answer your question. Let's start from the from the end. You say that 500,000 are officially employed people, and the population of our region is around 2 million people. And let's start from the Odesa region. According to your information, how many people are able to work in Odesa when it comes to their age and physical condition? When it comes to percent, if I'm not mistaken, 45% of the whole population are people capable to work from 18 plus 18 years old, and most of them are employed. Why have I mentioned this number? We should remember about the gray employment market. We have been actively fighting it. There are tools, mechanisms, but it's still there. So according to your calculation, it's 45%, less than 1 million. No, it's not 45%, 10, 15% of gray market. No, I mean the number of people able to work, 45%, right. You've mentioned taxes, you've mentioned the increased number of legal entities and individual entrepreneurs, but do you have information about the changes in the population revenue over the last year? When it comes to average salary, then according to statistics, the revenue is increasing, but we should take into consideration increasing prices. So the real revenues decreased at least by 5%. You've also mentioned that 1,715 legal entities and around 2,000 individual entrepreneurs registered. But do you have information about closed legal entities and individual entrepreneurs? Because quite often this is more about registration. This is the absolute increase. This is the difference between registered and closed. As for individual entrepreneurs, we can analyze the statistics, for example, these simple procedures through DIA app. But when it comes to legal entities, if I'm not mistaken, around 300 legal entities closed during the first 6 months. And the procedure here is more difficult. It takes more than 3 months to close legal entity. That's why not all legal entities close properly. So they can stop their activities, they can suspend labor contracts, but from legal point of view, they're still operative. You've also told us a lot about different types of compensations for loans and the support from the local and regional authorities. And the question is, where do you take money for these compensations? This is a macro-financial support from the EU, or is this supported by the state budget? Could you share more details? When it comes to state programs, this is a macro-financial support. And when it comes to regional programs, then this is the expense of our local and regional budget. These are the revenue of the territorial communities. The revenue tax for natural entities has increased. 15% of all these taxes are sent to the regional budget, 64% to local budgets of communities, and the rest is for the state budget. That's why we have increased regional budget. We have resources to support business, and actually, when we support business, then we get more taxes. That's returning revenue to budget. This is how it should work in theory and actually in practice. And the last question of mine, in the new rules for reservation employees for enterprises, there is the new condition. This is the absence of debt for such companies. Do you have information? How has this affected the amount of enterprises that reserve their employees, or do they pay their debts? And these criteria are used for the critical enterprises. We have created the working group, the commission, to examine enterprises. We first examine the documents submitted for reservation to the regional administration. We have identified 108 enterprises, but there are 30 refusals, including because of the debt in taxes. There are criteria defined by Order 76. Then we cannot give the status of critical enterprise. This is a mandatory condition envisaged by the order of the Cabinet of Ministers for the enterprise having no tax debts. And so has the amount of enterprises decreased because of this tax debt? There is some impact, but it is not that critical. Do you have some specific numbers? Those enterprises that reserve their employees, then they continue operations and they need people for that. That's why they pay taxes. And as for the tax debt, then the enterprise does not reserve its employees. But there can be different reasons for enterprise not to pay taxes, court proceedings, property arrests. There are some legal structures. We interview enterprises and we find a legal possibility for an enterprise to pay debts. But do you have any specific numbers? No, to be honest, we don't have even such statistics. But I know that we refused reservation 30 enterprises because they could not meet requirements of the Regulation 76, including tax debts. But mainly we refuse because the low salary of the enterprise, so it's like 12,000, the average salary in the region, 12,000. Then in the salary of the enterprise, the average one could be 10,000, and this means that it does not meet the requirements of the mentioned regulation. Thank you very much for this detailed report. Our next briefing will be in 40 minutes at 1 p.m. Please stay tuned.